has been identified by the Government of India. If you see into the formats, Gayatri will talk about it more in detail. The formats are much more detailed now. As they say, the devil is always in the details. So the government has gone into great detail on how the companies have to disclose whatever they are doing under CSR. So reporting is very much on the agenda of the Government of India. Surpluses, if any, let us say a CSR project is giving loans to women self-help groups or whatever. They are also generating some surpluses. Those surpluses also have to be plowed back into the same CSR projects, into the same project or other projects. Meaning thereby, whatever incomes that you earn from CSR has to be plowed back into CSR expenditure. They are not revenues of the company. Now, impact assessment. Impact assessment has been made mandatory for under two criteria. One is any project more than 1 crore has to have a mandatory impact assessment. Ultimately it is ROI, return on investment. And that was the basic spirit behind the formulation of the CSR provisions in the Act 2013, that let us give corporate India a chance. Let them allow them to take up developmental initiatives which give a higher ROI than the traditional Government of India programs. So that was the expectation. So that is why an impact assessment is made mandatory for all projects beyond 1 crore. Also, any company spending more than 10 crores, impact assessment has been made mandatory. So, so, uh, so in sum total, these are some of the gaps, so to say, and improvements which have been made in these amendments. Still, a lot has to be done, but then it's all a process of evolution. We learn from our experiences and our failures, and also our successes. So this is a step in the right direction. So I'll stop here and give the floor to Divya and Gayatri to carry forward the discussion. So on their behalf also, I'd like to welcome friends from the corporate sector, both public, private, academia, and also scientific institutions, I was told, which are also participating in a big way. Scientific institutions, mind you, will have a big role under CSR. For the right reasons, Government of India is focusing on R&D and more funds from CSR to be invested in R&D, in academic institutions, in research institutions like CSR, IITs, whatever. So a lot of potential is there, and we would really encourage them to come on board. And whatever doubts there are, please clarify your doubts. Scientific establishments and R&D outfits will have a big role to play in CSR. So I'll again thank Gayatri and Divya for giving me this opportunity. And I wish and hope if I'm given time towards the end of this discussion, I'll join you again with a short presentation. But before that, I wish you all success for this workshop. Hopefully, all of us will benefit from each other's contributions. Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you so much, sir, for that, for setting the context and for that amazing, energy you bring to the group. So, and of course, we are going to have you back again at about 3:45 p.m. so that you can share, your perspective and the implications, more importantly, sir, so that, our participants here get a first-hand feel of what are they getting into now. So and I also on my personal behalf want to welcome all those who joined us after the welcome note was already delivered. So we have reasonable about 50 participants today, and all coming from varied backgrounds, but I think the mission remains the same, to develop India into a better and more inclusive country. So with this note, I would like to now welcome Gayatri Subramaniam. Gayatri is also my co-founder and director at the International Center for Socially Responsible Businesses. A little introduction for those who are interacting first time with her. So she's an academic, as well as she served the government for close to 11 years, and she's worked with the corporate as well. And she's a leading expert on CSR and POSH in the country. So, in fact, I would say, not just the country, she's done a couple of international assignments as well. And so before, we initiated our own in 2019. So Gayatri was actually working as the associate vice president with HDFC Life Insurance Company, where she was handling the company's CSR, L&D, sustainability, and prevention of, sexual harassment at workplace initiatives. Prior to that, as I said, for about a decade, she was responsible for, or rather she was the national convener for National Foundation for CSR, which was a platform created by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. And that's where, she was involved in the evolvement of the new legislation on CSR in India. And she has worked extensively on framing of the National Voluntary Guidelines, the NVGs. She's also worked on the BRR, which is the Business Reporting, Responsible Reporting Framework that was mandated by SEBI for top 500 listed companies. And she's been a prolific speaker, so you'll experience her oration skills now. And with numerous awards, Gayatri has also published a couple of books specifically on CSR. And I'm so glad, Gayatri, you're here today, and this is a joint initiative, but I know how passionate you are about CSR. So not standing between you and our participants, I think it will be good if we can, just hit on direct, and I'll present the floor open to you.
Thank you so much, Divya. Can I get share screen rights, please?
Right, just a minute. You are the co-host, you have the screen share rights.
Okay, that's great. Okay. So my screen is visible.
Right, it is.
A very good morning to everybody, and a warm welcome to each one of you on this, I would say, remarkable day, because we have been talking about CSR. And Divya, very kind of you to give such a detailed introduction. I would say my introduction is that, like, I've been fortunate to be at the right place at the right time when so many things were happening. My association with corporate world started somewhere in 2008-9, when these kind of trainings, take me to a very, very cold December morning when something called Voluntary Guidelines on CSR was released. And that was the time when I happened to meet all the corporate honchos, and my first exposure, I would say, to corporate world happened. And after that, there was no looking back. It had been a roller coaster ride. It has been a very interesting journey. But then at of boasting, I would say now we stand in pride, like with pride, we stand in India, which is the only country which has legislated corporate social responsibility. All the companies falling in this ambit are talking about it. With these new amendments, a lot of changes have been brought up, and also all the loopholes which were there initially, all the apprehensions, all the anxiety has been put to rest by Ministry of Corporate Affairs by bringing out these amendments in Companies Act 2013. See, the Companies Act, after industrialization, after independence, India got independence, was written in 1956. And after that, it was rewritten in 2013. And the entire 70 years journey had been based on, like you all know, Ministry of Corporate Affairs is the one who is responsible for the governance of these industries of the corporate world, or corporate India as we call it. You would see that it's not easy to write an act and to put it into effect in a democratic country like ours. India being the biggest democratic country, has to go through the entire evolvement through participative process. It is not that the like Prime Minister or President of India gets up and writes an act or just initiates an act. It has to come from the people, by the people, for the people. So it is that when I say it has been a very interesting journey, I'm saying because I was a part of almost fortunate enough to be a part of each and every consultation which happened with all the major stakeholders, be it corporate, be it implementing agency, be it academics, be it consultants or government. Of course, I was representing government. So I'll tell you how it was important. But before that, I have a question for all of you. Against a population of 125 to 130 crores, how many corporates do you think are present in India? You can unmute yourself and answer this. How many corporates are there? What do you mean by corporate? And how many corporates are there? Or companies are there? Please unmute yourself. I won't answer. I want to make it interactive because I don't want to just be one-way traffic. Can anyone tell me how many corporates are there, please? Divya, am I audible?
Yes, Gayatri, you are.
So nobody is answering. I was wondering. Any idea how many corporates? Yeah? Yes, please.
3,000 corporates will be there.
3,000. Any more ideas? 3,001. Any more ideas?
Hello. Hi, I'm Anjali. Hello.
Yes, Anjali.
Yeah, I'm Anjali from Tata Power. I think there are 10, around approximately 10 lakhs. 10 lakhs. Yeah.
Okay. Any more ideas?
This is Atul from IIT Dehradun. Maybe 1.25 million.
1.25 million. Atul, I think you need a clapping because yes, 1.25 million is the latest figure that we have got.
Yeah.
But in India, being as I said, most populated country, or at least second populated country, 125 crores of Indian population, and we have only 1.25 million, that is around 12 lakh companies. So you can see and know that in India, most of the industry, it's not that industry is less, but the industry belongs to a sector called unorganized sector. It is more of SMEs or more of sector which is based on proprietorship or partnership without any registration with any ministry or without any registration, without any financial governance to be complied for. So it is, in India, if you see the total number of companies which are registered with Ministry of Corporate Affairs is 20 lakhs. But as you know, when Modi ji took over, he declared many companies as shell companies. He closed many companies. Many companies were found just bogus on papers. Many were dormant, which was not doing anything. Many companies were on the way of liquidation or on the way of exit. So as Atul rightly said, active companies, when I say active companies, means not necessarily profit-making companies, but companies which are, registered and doing some work and are, giving employees or are involved in services or in products is 12,15,973 companies as per the official data released by Ministry of Corporate Affairs in March 2020. So we are talking about 12 lakh companies against such a huge population. But at the same time, when it comes to CSR, Divya and Dr. Gupta spoke about CSR. If you talk about CSR, it is further reduced. It is. Can any idea how many companies fall in the ambit of CSR? Any idea, please? No idea? So at least those participants are falling in the ambit, right? That is why you're here. So we have just around 20,000 companies. Around 20,000 means 21 or 22,000 companies which are falling in the ambit. So it is just not even 2% of the active companies which have to do CSR as a compliance. And again, when I say CSR as a compliance, not necessarily they have to spend. I'll tell you how when I come to the act. So we are talking about 2% of companies spending 2% of money towards corporate social responsibility and so much halabulla. Just 2% of companies with the registered 1.25 million or 12,15,000 around 20 companies. So this talks about the scenario, but still I would again, say that out of 470 sections which are there in the New Companies Act, which was rewritten, restructured in 2013, only one-page act speaks about corporate social responsibility, and that section is called Section 135, and it has created such a huge, wave in the country that everybody is talking about CSR. So when I said it got evolved through participative process, and as Divya said, it was not only Indian stakeholders, but external stakeholders also, like out of India, international stakeholders also, who were with a great, anxiety and a great anticipation that what happens when a country mandates CSR. CSR something which is passion, CSR something which is responsibility. How can you make somebody responsible by putting in an act in place or putting a gun on your shoulder and say that you have to do CSR? But that is how India works, and that is how we have worked. So if you see evolution of CSR in India, how it happened, because as Milton Friedman said, business of business is business. That means any person, any collaborator, any industrialist, when he establishes a business, he has one motive in mind, and that is pure self-interest or profit. Because nobody would like to get into any kind of industrialization, any kind of corporate without keeping profit in mind. And that is why keeping profit in mind, the community interest, the environment interest, or any kind of other responsibility is not there in your mind when you think about profit. But then came in an era of family-owned businesses like Tata's, Birla's, who started talking about philanthropy, who started talking about staff welfare, started with staff welfare. For example, many of you may not know, maternity leave was first given by Tata's in India. That was like officially given. So philanthropy in the form of passive donations, philanthropy in the form of charities came into existence by constructing hospitals, schools, various, other initiatives which improved the status of the community. We belong to a country where the difference between have and have-nots is too vast. We have a dark India, we have a bright India, and dark India or the India in villages belong to, people who majorly do not have, while, there is a very small percentage in India who have. So the main objective of this act is also to bring in that, to patch up that difference between have and have-nots. And that is why corporate as a major actor was involved in this act. So if you will go to all the, reports of standing committee, all the documents which have been maintained by Ministry of Corporate Affairs, you will find, as Dr. Gupta said, it was not just to, torture the corporates, but it was to bring corporates into limelight, to tell them what's in good for me, or what exactly, how exactly they can, also progress, keeping the community in mind or taking community along with them. So that was the hand-holding, that was the community investment, which was, encouraged by these acts. Strategic community investment came into existence in late 80s, in 80s and 90s, when Department of Heavy Industries, established something called, public enterprises. That is, do you know what is a public sector undertaking? Any idea? You can unmute yourself and answer, please. A public sector undertaking. Many of you are representing public sector undertaking, right?
It's a government PSU.
It's a government PSU, or it's a government-owned company. That is, government has more stakes than public, right?
Is government.
Yes, main stakeholder is government. You're right. What other types of companies do we have? Any idea? Many of you, private companies which may be family-owned businesses or, headed by a board of directors, and Public sector undertaking also may be central public sector undertaking or a state public sector undertaking, right? A state government can also own it. Or you may have foreign-based multinationals, which came in as a boom in early 2000, that time millennial group, which is called, foreign-based multinationals, wherein the main stakeholder is the foreign company originated out of India, and they are the companies who have. Then you have listed companies. India, listed companies would be there. We have two kinds of stock exchanges in India: Bombay Stock Exchange and National Stock Exchange. So, any idea how many listed companies are there in India?
10,000 companies.
Not 10,000. Anybody else? Not 10,000, but there are around 2,000 listed on BSC and NSE, and around 5,000 in BSC. So around less than 10,000. It is not. And how many PSUs are there?
Around 150.
Around 150. There are 300 PSUs which are governed by central government, say CPSUs, and around 2,000. I'm not giving you the exact figure. It may be 322 or 325. Some of them are dormant still, and 2,000 which are state government owned companies. So those companies which are called PSUs, they are the ones which were established with major investments, like to bring in steel, to get gas, to get oil. And those big companies started believing in strategic community investment because those were the colonies which were established outside the urban area, that is in remote areas. But if you would have visited, and many of you who belong to PSUs would have seen, their colonies are self-sufficient because there the strategic giving is linked to business interest. So any colony, I remember it because I spent some very good time in BHEL Ranipur, which was a small colony in Haridwar, but was very self-sufficient because of all the efforts made by BHEL. And it was not only for their employees, but also for the community. Then came in an era of good corporate citizenship, which was mainly brought in by foreign-based multinationals, wherein they spoke about diversity, they spoke about equality, they spoke about, investment in social development. And many NGOs also came in, like Bill and Melinda Gates or like others, who really invested in India to, again, in these development initiatives. That was the time when something called National Voluntary Guidelines were developed by Ministry of Corporate Affairs in collaboration with GIZ Germany, wherein those national voluntary guidelines were based on business responsibility aspect in the field of environment, economics, and of course, the social responsibility. So national voluntary guidelines on social, environmental, and economic responsibilities were articulated in the form of 9 principles, and it spoke about everything related or reflected in business responsibility, like ethics, transparency, accountability, customer protection, consumer protection, life cycle of products and goods, everything. So when you talk about NVGs, you also talk about, the responsible business lobbying, wherein the companies were, all these things were necessary, were found very necessary because of various fiascos or scams which had already happened in India. For example, Satyam fiasco, or for example, Bhopal gas tragedy. All these things were reflecting on the irresponsible behavior of the company. I'm not saying all the companies are irresponsible, but there was some intervention from government needed in order to take care of these, contingencies. And that is the reason why national voluntary guidelines were brought into picture. But again, as the word voluntary says, it was not, companies were taking it seriously. They were saying that we are, following it up, but there was no disclosure. There was no way to find out how companies are doing it. And that is why when a Ministry of Corporate Affairs, along with SEBI, that is Securities Exchange Board of India, which is again a financial regulator authority of India, came up with something called Business Responsibility Reporting Framework. which was mandated since SEBI regulates all the listed companies. It was mandated by SEBI. At least they started with top 10, top 100 companies. Then it was made top 500 companies. Then it went on to top 1,000 companies. So today we stand at a place where 1,000 listed companies have to, disclose on national voluntary guidelines. Then came in, of course, Section 135. We are here today. We are discussing the amendments. This Section 135 was Gazette notified in the month of April, I think, in 2013, and the companies were supposed to do it by 2014. As I said, one section. After that, a section was supported by rules, which was released in February 2014. And then there is a Schedule 7, which defines all the activities that can be undertaken as CSR. I'll be coming to that later on. But today we are at a landscape wherein we have companies which have to report on national voluntary guidelines, on like through BRR. They might have to report Section 135. They might have to report on various other international guidelines in case if there's a foreign-based multinational companies. So it is important to know all the guidelines which are there today. At least, I wouldn't say thorough knowledge, but at least awareness about these guidelines or these initiatives, which was taken up by Ministry of Corporate Affairs. And these are all, some of them are mandates, some of them are just recommendatory guidelines, some of them are, amendments, some of them are recommendations committees. I'll start with 2007, when Prime Minister, in a conference of CII spoke about something called 10-point social charter. And he spoke about bringing in equality, bringing in, the staff welfare. He talked about, curbing the salary of high level, high management people. So there are 10 principles he spoke about, which again reflected in some way or the other towards the development of nation. Voluntary guidelines, CSR, as I said, was released in 2009. I remember in Vigyan Bhavan, all the corporate honchos were sitting in the front seat, and these guidelines were released. Pratibha Devi Singh Patil was then President of India. When she released it, she said, don't go by its size. It's going to create a revolution. We had not, believed that time, but revolution it has created. DPE, Department of Public Enterprises, released their own guidelines mandating CSR. We have Dr. Madhukar Gupta with us, who have been a very integral part of this entire development of these guidelines, wherein the Department of Public Enterprise released these guidelines. I was there when these guidelines were released by then Secretary Dr. Bhaskar Chatterjee, and all the Maharatna, Mini Ratna, and Navratna company CEOs were there, but they did not know what do we do or how do we do CSR? They said we are good at producing steel, we are good at taking gas, extracting gas. How would we do CSR? And that was the time when Tata Institute of Social Sciences was given a responsibility of creating something called CSR Hub, wherein they were given responsibility of putting all the NGOs together who could be used as partners by these PSUs. In DP guidelines, it was mandated that the leadership should have a committee, and the profit-making companies should spend something from 5% on social initiatives, including sustainability. So that was the guideline which came in 2010. So those who say that CSR was mandated by 2013 Act, is not the case. In fact, for the Department of Public Enterprises, for all the PSUs and CPSUs and state PSUs, it was mandated in 2010 itself. National Voluntary Guidelines, as I said, 9 principles came in existence in 2011. SEBI BRR came in 2012. Immediately, it was mandated for top 100 companies. It was just a checkbox exercise wherein they had to write about, the companies had to write about whether they are following ethics, transparency, accountability, life cycle, responsible business lobbying, customer protection, staff welfare, inclusive development. In fact, it has a principle of inclusive development as principle 8, which was, that leaf was taken up in Companies Act, and It came as a principle of inclusive development or corporate social responsibility, as it is called today. Revised GP guidelines were also released in 2013. Then in 2015, SEBI mandated business responsible reporting for top 500 companies. And in HLC, this is called High Level Committee, which was under the leadership of Anil Baijal, then industrialist, and then he became governor of Delhi also, was established in 2015. And this committee was given the responsibility of monitoring and evaluating the CSR practices of India. And they came up with their recommendations in 2015. Companies Amendment Act in 2017 came in, wherein Section 135 was clarified. Further points were clarified. In the course of my presentation, I'll tell you what came in 2017. Then 2019, again, Companies Amendment Act came in, wherein it was, the penalty for not doing CSR was a criminal offense in case if you do not do it. But then there was a lot of petition, a lot of opposition, and Section 135 was put on hold. It was revisited, and in Amendment 2020, it was declared that it is not a criminal offense, but a civil offense. Otherwise, initial act, if you see, had the provision of, penalty of fine as well as imprisonment of the directors. While in 2019, it came as an amendment act, but then in 2020, it was revisited, revised, and now it is a civil offense and not a criminal offense. That means any person or any company not doing CSR will have to pay fine, including the committee directors, as Dr. Gupta had emphasized, the increased or enhanced responsibility, but not crime. They'll not at least go to jail. Second high-level committee under the chairmanship of Mr. Injeti Srinivas, the secretary, was revised, and we have a member also. Dr. Gupta was a member of this HLC, who gave in very good recommendations. And most of the recommendations, I'm very happy to say, are the ones which stand as amendment today. So I'll just take you to those recommendations also. National award was established because in order to, promote and in order to encourage CSR, a national award was established in 2019. President of India himself gave away the awards. Many companies, around 18 of them, got awards for their CSR efforts. Again, Dr. Gupta was in the committee. I had the pleasure and privilege of working with Dr. Gupta on all these committees. Then we had SEBI, which mandated top 1,000 companies in 2019. Revised BRR has been released by Ministry of Corporate Affairs, but is still lying with SEBI for, notification. Revised BRR is a very comprehensive version of the initial BRR, which was released in 2012. If you see, revised BRR again has a lot to be done by the companies. It has again tightened up all the loopholes which were there in 2012 BRR. Companies Amendment Act came in 2020. As I said, this is a very major step in which decriminalization of Section 135 was done. Then today we stand at 2021, wherein companies CSR policy amendment rules came in. I would stop here in case if you have any questions, you may ask me, or you can even write it in the chat box. Divya will collate it and will send it to me. We will be in touch with you. We'll be forming a WhatsApp group, and any kind of, consultation or any kind of clarifications we will try to give you, or we'll try to take it to the correct person in the ministry in case if you have any doubts. Any questions, please? Before I start with Section 135. Silence means no questions. Okay.
Madam,
so, yes.
Calling from Bharat Electronics Limited.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Query,
Yes, ma'am.
regarding that provisions of the act which you said on this imprisonment and all those things which you just mentioned.
Yes.
I think
yes, ma'am.
Companies
Yes,
Amendment
ma'am.
Act 2020. Now here,
Yes,
and which has been notified on 22nd January 2021. I just want to read
Yes,
I just want to read Section 135 Clause 7, which says that, you know,
Yes,
the
ma'am.
company contravenes the provisions of the subsection 5 or subsection 6, which is basically talking about the unspent
ma'am.
amount and the which needs to be spent.
Yes,
The
ma'am.
company shall be punishable with fine which shall not be less than
That's what
5,000 rupees.
That's what I
Sorry,
said, ma'am.
50,000.
Yes, ma'am. I said that the fine would be there, but
Which may, yeah,
ma'am,
yeah.
initially it was even jail.
But
imprisonment.
this one is still there, madam. That's what I just
It
want
is
to clarify.
It is there. It is there,
But-
ma'am. It's there. It's there. It's
And
there.
every officer of such company
Yes,
all shall
ma'am.
be punishable with imprisonment
Yes,
for a
ma'am.
term,
Yes, ma'am.
which may extend to 3 years.
Yes. No, not the
This is
crime. Ma'am, you're not audible. Can you please write it in the
Ma'am,
chat?
can you hear
I'll
me?
answer. You were like
Yeah.
not audible. Huh. Tell me, ma'am.
See, am I audible, madam? Because I would like to read
Yes.
out that clause because it's quite a big
Yes,
clause. Shall
yes.
I read it out?
Yes, ma'am.
See, kindly hear me, ma'am. If a company
Yes, ma'am.
contravenes the provisions of subsection 5 or subsection 6, the company shall be punishable with fine which shall not be less than 50,000 rupees, but which may extend to 25 lakh rupees, and every officer of such company who is in default shall be punishable with imprisonment for a term, which may extend to 3 years.
Ma'am, can I stop you here, please?
Yeah, please.
It has been amended. Now there is no imprisonment. It is only fine, and I'll tell you what is the amendment in the coming presentation.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. Fine, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. So after all these guidelines, the international companies and some of the PSUs are also, you know, and even the academics like CSIR, they're working on SDGs because Niti Aayog has been, you know, compelling or has been promoting these sustainable development goals. India is one of the signatories. It has 17 goals, 169 indicators. So all these guidelines, the sustainable development goals, if you see the amendment to Schedule 7, which speaks about the institutions which can be used to do CSR, also they have specified that they have to work along with sustainable development goal or towards sustainable development goal. So if you see sustainable development goals and all these guidelines, everything has only one thing common in them, and that is the implementation or strategic intervention, strategic implementation. So the basic motive or objective of all these guidelines is to bring companies into mainstream for public goods or for community development or for the development of nation, as we say. So if you see the 6-step strategy which every company has to put in place in order to, put any of these guidelines, once you have that strategic intervention in your company, the strategy has been set, you can always bring it in consonance with any requirement, any compliance of the law. So if you see that first is to analyze your business. What kind of business do you have? Your business may be, for example, ITC may be making flour, ITC may be making other drinks, ITC may be making cigarettes also. So they have opportunities and threats for each of their, products, each of their, in the same way, every company will have that. So it is important to know your business, to analyze it properly, to identify the risks and opportunities, then to develop a strategy. Because as Dr. Gupta said, it is not going to be, even the CSR has to be based on this strategy only, because it cannot be just, writing a check or putting philanthropy in practice. It needs to be strategically, placed at for every intervention of CSR, for every project of CSR. So you get that returns on your investment. Dr. Gupta spoke about SROI, social returns on investment, and that is achievable only if every activity of yours in CSR is done in a strategic manner. And strategy involves these 7 steps, wherein you need to connect it to your interface, to your the structure of the organization. So that strategy needs to be operational versus strategic, compliance versus beyond compliance. You will see there were many companies who have spent in the last few years. I'll be taking an analysis of last 5 years also. In the analysis, we observed many companies have done more than what is required in CSR. They have spent more than what is required. So the government has not, ignored that fact. They have taken that fact into consideration, and they have now given provision of setting of those funds for the next year. Unless it is monitored from of monitoring and evaluating every CSR activity. And now, if you see, when I'll take you through the presentation of comprehensive reporting, all that has in black and white onto your website with the government in your, public eye. So it is important to monitor and review your progress, and very, very important is to communicate to the major stakeholders. It could be your internal external stakeholders, community, press, media, government, and you need to, report it. So as Dr. Gupta again pointed out, the reporting is going to be very comprehensive, very important. In fact, when I was making my presentation, I saw 13, 14 slides are on reporting itself. And it's a very vast and comprehensive reporting now. So I'll start with section 135, and let me please point out that this has all the amendments. This is the act I'm presenting as of how it stands today, inclusive of all the amendments which came in 19, which came in 17, 19, and 20. So it says that every company, it may be a private company, it may be a public company, provided it falls in one of these three categories. It is not just and, it is or. It may have a net worth of 500 crores or more. It may have turnover of rupees 1,000 crores or more, or it may have net profit of 5 crores or more during any financial year. Initially, in the BEAR Act in 2014, it was written during last three years. But now it has, like with the amendment, it is any financial year, preceding financial year, that means. It has to constitute a CSR committee of the board consisting of 3 directors, out of which at least 1 director shall be an independent director. Now, these companies who fall in this ambit have been asked to constitute a CSR committee. The major idea was to bring CSR from backroom to boardroom. That means you need to create a committee of the board. Again, unheard of. It was not there before. Anywhere. So CSR committee of the board will have 3 directors at least, and out of which 1 will be an independent director. Now, when you say independent director, that means he has to be independent of the working of the organization. So he has to be appointed. But that is done only in case of, through law, only in case of listed companies. So in case if your company is not listed, you do not need to appoint an independent director for this particular purpose. You can just do it with 2 directors. It has been clarified in the Act that independent director will be there only in case of listed companies. If your company is a foreign-based multinational, then you need to have a person who has to be a counterpart of your foreign origin. That is again, as per Companies Act, that director has to be a person who is from foreign origin. That is in case of foreign-based multinational. While a private or a public company which is not listed may have 2 to 3 directors in the CSR committee. Now, this committee's composition has to be disclosed in the board's report. Initially, when we went through the board's report of all 5 years, we found that boards have just written that there are 3 directors. They've not given names. They've not given phone numbers. They have not given. So even if you find any policy, it would be just a decorative policy or just a policy which would state that, yes, we do have a CSR committee. But if you see the new amendment, it states that composition has to be disclosed in the form telephone number, in the form of email ID. So all those details will go onto the website as well as onto the board's report, which ultimately comes to Ministry of Corporate Affairs. CSR committee has been given certain, responsibilities. And as Dr. Gupta pointed out, now these responsibilities have been tightened up a lot, have been, robustified. So you will have a lot of, in case if you are a CSR committee member, you need not just open your mouth to eat something, you'll have to do work now. So this is like, again, on a lighter note. So CSR committee has to formulate a CSR policy. Now, the definition of CSR policy in the BEAR Act of 2014 was simply amendment. The definition of CSR will be attributed towards CSR committee. They also need to recommend the amount of expenditure to be incurred. Amount of expenditure will be 2% of the net profit made. Now, again, in the amendments, the net profit has been clarified that it will not include any dividends. It will not include anything which your foreign counterparts are doing. It will be based or calculated out of Section 198, as per Section 198, and as per for foreign companies, the other section also involves. I'll just tell you that. So it is again clarified in the amendments. It also has to monitor the CSR policy of the company from time to time. Monitoring and evaluation schedule has to be annexed now. If you will see in the reporting as well as in the action plan, you need to put in a proper monitoring because the board has been given responsibility of utilizing their funds, and every time, like Dr. Gupta pointed out, CFO was not involved. In this case now, the CFO has to be responsible for monitoring and for disbursement of funds, for seeing that funds have been utilized properly. Board also has been given certain responsibilities, and that is to approve this CSR policy through board resolution, disclose the contents of this policy in the report, and put it on company's website. It has been enhanced, though it was put before also, but when we were going through the policy, we found very few companies have in fact put their policy, but now it has been enhanced in the amendments that company's website, in case if you have a website, it is mandatory for you to put that company's, to put the policy on the company's website. Ensure that activities as are included in CSR policy are undertaken. Now, this assurance or this ensuring is also has been clarified in the amendments in the form of CSR how they will be undertaking these activities. It is not just one-way traffic. It has to be proper strategic intervention. As I said, proper monitoring and evaluation, proper utilization. Ongoing projects have been clarified. Projects which are completed have been clarified. Administration costs have been clarified. The monitoring and evaluation cost has been clarified. Impact assessment cost has been clarified. So it is not just the words now. Everything has to be read between words, outside words, and every line has to be interpreted as per the new amendments. Then it also says that the board of every company referred to in subsection 1, that is 1,100 and 505 crores profit, shall ensure that the company spends in every financial year at least 2% of the average net profits of the company made during the 3 immediate preceding financial years. So it means that every company will have to spend 2% of the average net profit of the made during the 3 immediate preceding financial years. Now, there was a question that there may be new companies who have not finished the 3 years, but they still make profit. What do we do? Or they may fall in the ambit due to their net worth, due to their annual turnover. So in the amendment, it was written, and this clause was inserted, that where the company has not completed the period of 3 financial years since its incorporation during such immediate preceding financial year in pursuance of its CSR policy. So whatever I have written in red have been amended later on. Initial Bare Act has had only that 2% of the average net profits made during the immediate preceding financial year had to be spent. We got a lot of queries from companies that, how do we do it in case if there is the company who has not completed 3 years since its incorporation, but still, and with the time, we saw that many new companies are coming up with more turnover, more net worth, and that is why this clause was inserted later on. Then there was a clause saying that provided the company shall give preference to local areas and areas around where it operates for spending the amount earmarked for CSR activities. Now this local area also has been defined in the amendments, wherein it said that, in certain PSUs, as I know, they have demarcated it as per the kilometers, like 25 kilometers or 50 kilometers. It may be as per internal policy of the company. But what government wanted is that local areas, especially if you are involved in a manufacturing unit where you are really, spoiling the atmosphere, or you are, the immediate community is getting affected, it is better to give them back rather than, going far. Otherwise, from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, India is one, and it doesn't apply to service industry wherein you have all India presence, pan-India presence, banking industry or other industries. Basically, local areas is more important to companies which have manufacturing units or gas extraction units or steel making units, wherein their work is limited, their operations are limited to a particular place. And also, it says that this is the amendment, ma'am, I was talking about. The company fails to such amount, the board shall, in its report made under clause O of subsection 3, which was later modified. As I said, clause O of subsection 3 of section 134 spoke about criminal offense, but now it has been, made to only penalty in the form of fine. And now in the amendment, it said that in case if you have not spent that amount, you need to transfer that amount to a special escrow account which you open in your company, which is called unspent CSR account. You transfer that amount in case if it belongs to a ongoing project. When I say ongoing project, that means any project with a time period of 3 years, excluding the financial year in which it was incepted, then that money, whatever is not spent, can be sent to that special account which has to be opened by companies now. And in case if it is not spent, then also you need to send it to one of the funds which is specified in Schedule 7. There are 4 or 5 funds which are specified. One is PM Relief Fund, PM Cares, Swachh Bharat, Clean Ganga, and then SC, Women Empowerment, or any other funds like that. So in case, as Dr. Gupta pointed out, in case if you have not been able to spend, the government is going to take away that money. So it is better that all the companies spend. And how it is to be spent, it is already specified in the Amendment Act. It says that any amount remaining unspent shall be transferred within 30 days to the special account opened by the company in that behalf for that financial year, which is called unspent corporate social responsibility account. So you need to open an account in case, suppose if you have to spend 100 rupees as per your 2%, you've been able to spend only 80, that 20 will go to this unspent CSR, provided it is linked to an ongoing project. If it is not linked to an ongoing project, it has to go to funds specified in Schedule 7. But if it is linked to an ongoing project, you can keep it for 3 years with you. And if you are not able to spend it in 3 financial years also, then it has to be transferred to the same, to the funds specified in Schedule 7 within a period of 30 days from the date of completion of the 3rd financial year. That means, I think all the loopholes have been tightened up. There were a lot of, when I was in ministry, a lot of questions were there on the unspent CSR amount. I would say that this was not the case in case of PSUs, because PSUs had a provision of carrying, so bound by, you know, CAG, CVC, and many other compliances. But in case of private companies, this was something which was very, very gray. You know, companies did not know whether unspent money has to go to a larger profit, or it should go, you know, go somewhere else, or it should be converted into dividend. They did not know what to do, and they were not even disclosing what they were doing. So that loophole has been tightened up now, that everything which you do not spend goes into unspent account, lies there for 3 years, provided it is connected to an ongoing project. If it is not, then it goes to a fund specified in Schedule 7. In 3 years also, if you're not able to spend, it goes to a fund specified in Schedule 7. Here, I would like to mention that government is also considering to open a fund called National Unspent CSR Fund, in which all the funds which are not specified will be given. And company, where what is to be done with that money. And the clause 7 of section 135 says that if a company has contravenes these and ma'am, from BEL, you would like know this, that contravene, the company will be liable to a penalty of twice the amount required to be transferred by the company to the fund specified in Schedule 7, or the unspent corporate social responsibility, as the case may be, or 1 crore, whichever is less. And every officer of the company who is in default shall be liable of 1/10 of the amount required to be transferred. So 5 lakhs will have, in case if it is 1 crore, 5 lakhs the person of CSR committee will have to give. So this is, you know, 2 lakhs or whichever is less. So this is how, you know, that criminalization has been changed into civil offense. That is, penalty is there, but it is not considered as, you know, a crime wherein you are imprisoned. Ma'am, I think I'm clear. Any questions, please?
Yeah, ma'am, we've understood. This clarification we've understood, ma'am.
Yeah. Yes, yes.
Ma'am, we have another clarification. Can we interrupt now?
Yeah, please.
Ma'am, this is regarding unspent amount with respect to the escrow account, whatever you mentioned.
Yeah.
Now, we need to open an unspent CSR account for every financial year, or we can have a single account and
single account, single account, ma'am.
And then
that has to be audited by your CFO.
Now all the three plus 1 year, we have to have a separate account for reconciliation purpose, you know, madam, for better control and all.
So you can have just one account, and you know, every 3rd year, if you're not able to spend, it has to be rotated like that. In case if you for example,
on the escrow, that will be for the project wise, or it will be the consolidated unspent amount of
consolidated on the amount, consolidated.
Okay, thank you.
It's not project wise. And as I said, the central government has the right to give any directions, such special general directions to company or class of companies as is considers necessary to ensure compliance of provisions for the section, and the company will have to comply with it. Now, as Dr. Gupta also pointed out, yes, any questions? Somebody was saying something.
Sorry, it's just a quick question. This is Liane from Bharat Petroleum.
Yes, Liane.
Good morning. Very well, ma'am.
Yeah.
So my query was regarding the policy disclosure on the website. So according to the section, we have to disclose the policy, which we already do, but it also mentions the policy has to indicate the activities being undertaken and implementation schedules and other such contents.
Right.
Now that changes every year, the activities being undertaken, and how do you suggest that that be tackled by each
So
company?
there is a clause like that clause is supported by a statement saying that provided the board has the discretion of changing it as per, and you have to just put that resolution into that policy. I understand that CSR policy is a dynamic document. It can be changed from time to time. So the board, as you need to update your website as per the directions of the board.
Okay, ma'am. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Speaking
so
from
as
Bharat
Dr.
Electronics,
Gupta pointed.
can we just
Yes,
can I
ma'am.
have another query, ma'am, please?
Please.
Can you? It's a very basic question. What is the meaning of unspent amount, madam? Is it that when we have prescribed of 2%, whatever is mandated by the law, and if we spend anything less than 2%, that difference is the unspent amount? Can I just clarify on this, please, once more?
Yes, ma'am.
For the benefit of all.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Definitely. That money is, in the beginning of the financial year, you allocate funds for CSR. So suppose if I have to spend 100.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, good morning, ma'am. Ma'am, this is Faraz Khan from Rights Limited. I
Yes,
want to just ask one thing.
Yes, sir.
I'm cleared with this unspent amount that 100 rupees is the budget allocation and 20 is left if not the expenditure done. Then
Yes, sir.
we have the projects and they have certain milestones. Okay.
Yes, sir.
If any of the milestone of any of the project is left due to some of the reasons and it is carried forward as a project in next FY, but the budget allocation and total expenditure match, so will that allocation amount of particular project is called as unspent amount?
No, I'm sorry, I didn't get your question.
मैम I would repeat it in Hindi. मैम हमें एक बजट है, सपोज 100 लाख का बजट है हमारा, हमने 100 लाख उस साल में खर्चा कर दिया, बट कुछ प्रोजेक्ट ऐसे हैं जिनके माइलस्टोन को किसी वजह से वो कंप्लीट नहीं हो सके, और हमने जब अगले साल का बजट एलोकेशन करा और लिस्ट ऑफ प्रोजेक्ट्स करी शुरू में जो मई और अप्रैल में होती है, उसमें हमने कुछ प्रोजेक्ट्स ऐसे लिए जिनको कैरीड फॉरवर्ड की लिस्ट में डाला गया कि ये प्रोजेक्ट पिछले साल कंप्लीट नहीं हो सके और इस साल इनको फिर से लिया जा रहा है। 2 माइलस्टोन उनके पिछले साल पेमेंट हो चुकी थी, एक माइलस्टोन एज पर एलओए अब होनी है, तो वो जो अमाउंट है वो अनस्पेंड अमाउंट में काउंट होगा या इट्स अ न्यू कैरी फॉरवर्ड फॉर न्यू बजट?
सर वो मैंने इसीलिए पहले भी बोला था कि इसमें हम 2 चीजों के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं। एक ऑनगोइंग प्रोजेक्ट है, ऑनगोइंग प्रोजेक्ट की डेफिनेशन अभी अमेंडमेंट्स में भी क्लैरिफाई की हुई है कि कोई भी प्रोजेक्ट अब से सीएसआर का 3 साल का होगा कम से कम, or it can be ongoing wherein you set in your milestones, you set in your timelines, and that ongoing project either will have a separate payment of that particular year or it can be carried forward. So वो जो unspent में आप डालेंगे वो ongoing project से link करके डालेंगे।
नहीं मैम अगर हमारा पूरा बजट एलोकेशन लास्ट ईयर का कंप्लीट एक्सपेंस हो चुका है तो वो तो कोई अनस्पेंड नहीं रह गया। सपोज 100 लाख रुपए था, 100 लाख हमने
तो वो नए सिरे से ही तो शुरू करेंगे आप, सिर्फ प्रोजेक्ट ही तो आपका पुराना रहेगा,
सिर्फ प्रोजेक्ट पुराना रहेगा। मतलब जब हम कोई रिपोर्टिंग करेंगे तो उसमें अनस्पेंड की फिगर कहीं नहीं लिखेंगे। अगर हमारा 100 लाख
नहीं लिखेंगे क्योंकि मैम दैट इज व्हाट आई एम सेइंग सर। अब जैसे अगर आपका कोई प्रोजेक्ट है जिसमें फॉर एग्जांपल यू आर डूइंग सम स्कूल प्रोजेक्ट जिसमें आपका फर्स्ट माइलस्टोन है एक्विजिशन ऑफ लैंड, क्योंकि आपको स्कूल बनाना है तो सबसे पहले आपको लैंड एक्वायर करना है, तो लैंड एक्वायर के लिए आपने 100 लाख रुपए लगा दिए तो आपका एक्विजिशन हो गया, बट दैट प्रोजेक्ट कैन बी कैरिड फॉरवर्ड बिकॉज आपने सिर्फ लैंड land acquire kiya, construction will be second phase of that project, isn't it? Construction of the building will be second project. The hiring of teachers and hiring of infrastructure or getting infrastructure will be third phase. So that project will be done in phases. So it is important that at the beginning of the year, the project has to have milestones and budget allocated to it.
If it and the project limited is only for 3 years, every project is to be
project
completed.
Is limited. It has to be, project is not has to be limited for 3 years, but that particular phase in which that expenditure has to be made is 3 years. For example, again, मैं school का ही project लेती हूँ.